Obviously, the big change being that the curfew was lifted today, but in its place would come a $5,000 fine for anyone caught illegally gathering. So if we run through the changes today, firstly, outdoor gatherings of up to 5 people from a maximum of 2 households will be allowed. That limit on one person shopping, well, that's gone now too. People can now exercise within 5 kilometres of their workplace as well as their home. Outdoor training has resumed and outdoor pools will reopen. Some more relief for parents today. Childcare has reopened, and also the news that all primary students as well as VCAL and VCE students, well, they will return to school in a fortnight's time. In terms of workplaces, supermarkets and meat processors, they're ramping up their capacity so as to shore up that supply in time for the Christmas period. Manufacturing comes back. Real estate inspections return, although auctions will remain online only, and outdoor gardening resumes. Now, today we've seen just 5 new cases and 3 deaths. So whilst these cases are going down, we have seen testing drop as well. The government today really saying that testing is where it needs to be, is what needs to be occurring so that we can keep progressing out of lockdown. So in the past fortnight, 164,000 Victorians have been tested. That's about 1 in 40 Victorians. And of the tests done in Metro Melbourne, 387 tests came back negative for every positive test, and in regional areas 2,500 tests came back negative for every positive test. Again, the push is to keep that testing up as the government looks at potentially giving workplaces to conduct testing.
In order for us to sustain these numbers down, in order to be confident that we're beating this thing, we need to sustain our high testing levels. We need to ensure that at least 1 in 40 Victorians comes forward to get tested, and we carry on in that vein.
Andrea, meanwhile, further fallout from the abrupt resignation of the Health Minister over the weekend.
Yeah, Tom, we saw Jenny Mikakos resign not just as Health Minister on Saturday, but also from Parliament altogether. But she has been throwing a couple of grenades on the way out. The latest is a tweet today in which she congratulates Victorians on the efforts made so far, but finishes off by saying we're well on the way to eradication. Now, this has been a real sticking point for the government. They've long defended their strategy in this really tough lockdown by saying it's only about suppression, it's not about eradication. So the Health Minister happily putting that wedge in there just before the Premier's press conference. Of course, Daniel Andrews again rejecting that as an eradication strategy. Meanwhile, the Premier was also asked repeatedly today about how he could have maintained confidence in a Health Minister, given that he held her accountable for the hotel quarantine scheme.
Someone who I am prepared to say in very clear terms is someone who, in my judgment, has always worked as hard as she possibly could to do the best job she possibly could, and I just don't think there's anything served by me going any further than that.
Have you spoken to Jenny Mikakos yet?
No, I have.
If you had such confidence in someone who's served more than 20 years in Parliament, how come that hasn't warranted a phone call?
Well, again, I've got a lot of things to do. She's focused on the next chapter of her life. I'll speak to her at some point, I'm sure.
Doesn't look like that relationship will be repairing anytime soon. But finally, Tom, we've also had revelations about just how much the hotel quarantine inquiry is costing. It will now cost more than double what it was initially slated to, an extra $3 million tipped in to help the inquiry finish its proceedings.